The killer is wandering around. Enjoy. It's a beautiful day in Aberdeenshire. I wish my uncle had the same opportunity to wander around.
On the night of the 29th of September, 1983, a taxi driver named George Murdoch picked up one last fare. He radioed his control room. He said he was heading west, out toward Coulter. He never made that call again. Two boys on bicycles found him minutes later, fighting for his life in the middle of a quiet Aberdeen road. And the thing wrapped around his throat wasn't a rope, it wasn't a chain, it was a length of cheesewire. For more than 40 years, the man who brought that wire out into the dark has had no name, no face, nothing. Until now, because forensic science has finally given investigators something the killer could never have imagined in 1983, his DNA, and a list of 200 people who might share it. This is Aberdeen, 1983, the cheesewire murder. And this may be the closest anyone has ever come to naming the man who did it. Before he was a headline, before he was a mystery, George Murdoch was just an ordinary working man. His friends and family called him Dodd. He was born and raised in Aberdeen, 58 years old that autumn, and he'd been happily married to his wife Jessie for 37 years. No children, just the two of them. He kept pigeons. He liked being out on the water in a boat. His nephew would later describe him with 3 simple words: kind, gentle, the nicest of guys. George hadn't always driven a taxi. In the late 1970s, he'd been made redundant from a factory job, and to make ends meet, he took to the roads at night, ferrying fares across the city. He didn't love the work, and Jessie didn't love him doing it. She worried about the night shifts. She worried about the strangers climbing into his car in the dark. And George, kind, gentle George, tried to put her mind at ease with a promise. He told her, "If anyone ever tries to rob me, I won't fight them. I'll just hand over the money, every penny. It's not worth my life." Remember that promise, because it is the single most heartbreaking detail in this entire case. It was a Thursday, an ordinary evening shift. At around 8:30, George was in Aberdeen's West End, outside the new Marcliffe Hotel, on the busy Queen's Road, when a man flagged him down. A man described later as being in his 20s. George let him in. He radioed control. Destination, Coulter, on the western edge of the city. That was routine. A fare heading out of town. Nothing unusual, nothing to fear. He drove roughly 2 miles, and then, instead of carrying on toward Coulter, the taxi turned off, onto Pitfodell's Station Road, a quieter stretch on the outskirts of the city. We don't know exactly why. We don't know what was said in that car. What we know is that the vehicle stopped, and the man in the back seat attacked. He looped a cheesewire around George's throat and pulled. George Murdoch fought. The man who swore to his wife that he would never fight a robber fought. The struggle was so violent that the two men spilled out of the car and into the road itself. And that is where the two boys on their bikes saw it. 2 kids who came around a corner and saw a man being strangled to death in the street. George was calling for help. The boys raced to raise the alarm. The police were called, but Pitfodell's Station Road was on the edge of the city, and help was minutes away. George Murdoch didn't have minutes. By the time officers arrived, he was dead. His wallet was gone. His fare money was gone. There was around £21 in that wallet. A man who promised to hand over the money without a fight was murdered. And the killer took less than the price of a night out. The weapon was left behind at the scene. A length of cheesewire lying in the road. A weapon the killer had to have brought with him. You don't carry a garrote by accident, which tells investigators something chilling. This may not have been a robbery gone wrong at all. This may have been planned. The murder detonated across Aberdeen. It was said at the time to have shocked the nation. The press gave the unknown attacker a name that stuck for decades: the cheesewire killer. The police response was enormous. Officers visited 10,000 homes. They took 8,000 statements. They pieced together a description from the witnesses. A man in his 20s, thin, with short dark hair, wearing dark clothing. Clothing that, after a struggle like that, may well have been bloodstained. And there was one sighting that has haunted this case ever since. Shortly after the murder, a man walked into a local takeaway on the Great Western Road. The employee who served him would never forget him. He had scratches on his face, a bruised eye, and a cut on his hand that was bleeding. And he was asking for plasters, dark clothing, dark hair, early 20s. It matched the killer's description almost exactly. That bloodied man was never traced. Not then. Not in the 40 years since. Investigators had a description. They had a weapon. They had witnesses. They had a city desperate for an arrest. What they didn't have, what they couldn't have, in 1983, was the one thing that would eventually change everything. They couldn't read the killer's blood. The years passed, and the cheesewire murder became one of Scotland's most notorious unsolved crimes. For Jessie Murdoch, there was no closure, only fear. Her health declined after her husband's death, and family members say she lived in dread that the killer might one day come back for her. She died in 2004, 21 years after that night on Pitfordell's Station Road. She never learned who took George from her, but the family never let go. George's nephew, Alex McKay, took up the fight, determined that his uncle would not be forgotten, and he put into words what every family of an unsolved case understands. He said, "Closure to a family is like gold dust, something you crave, that you need. Even after all these years, a family cares. We always will." The case resurfaced again and again. A documentary, television appeals, and in March 2022, it featured on Crime Watch Live, backed by a £20,000 reward. Dozens of people came forward. That same year, police made another appeal, this time for a specific man seen in a bar in Aberdeen in 2015, described as local, in his 60s or 70s, wearing an Iron Maiden t-shirt. Someone they believed might hold information that could help. He too has never been identified. Every appeal brought new leads, but not one of them named the killer, because the answer was never going to come from a memory, or a phone call, or a face in a bar. The answer was in a laboratory, waiting for the science to catch up. In September of 2023, 40 years after George Murdoch was murdered, Police Scotland announced what they called the most significant development in the case to date. Forensic scientists, using techniques that simply did not exist in 1983, had developed a full male DNA profile from materials recovered at the crime scene. For the first time in 4 decades, they had the killer's genetic fingerprint. But there was a problem. A profile is only useful if you have something to match it against. And this profile matched no one on any database. The man it belonged to had never been caught for anything. He was a ghost. So investigators turned to a newer, more powerful tool, one that has cracked cold cases around the world. Familial DNA. The idea is this: you may not find the killer himself in a database, but you might find his relatives. Because family members share large chunks of their DNA, a partial match to a relative can point investigators toward a family tree, and down its branches, toward one man. Working with the UK's National Crime Agency, the team took the crime scene profile and searched for genetic links, and they built a list. 200 people. Now, this is the part that matters, and I want to be completely clear about it. Those 200 people are not suspects. Let me say that again. They are not accused of anything. The lead detective, Detective Inspector James Callender, said it plainly. These individuals are not suspects, but they may be able to help. They are people whose DNA may share a distant thread with the man who killed George Murdoch. And by voluntarily giving a simple swab, each one can either be ruled out entirely or help investigators narrow that vast web of relatives down, closer and closer, toward the source. The family put it in words that stay with you. On the campaign page set up in George's memory, they wrote, "In some families, dark secrets may lie buried for many years. The killer may only have told one who was very close to him." In late 2024, the family added a further £10,000 reward, not as a bounty on the killer, but as an incentive for those 200 people to come forward, give a swab, and close a door. So where does the cheesewire murder stand today? Let's be honest about it, because honesty is what this case deserves. No one has been arrested. No one has been charged. No one has been convicted. After more than 40 years, George Murdoch's killer has still not been named. But for the first time in the entire history of this case, the momentum belongs to the investigators, not the killer. They have his DNA. They have a genetic map that leads, however faintly, back toward him. They have a team actively taking swabs and ruling people out, one by one. And they have a family that has refused, for 4 decades, to let George become just a name in an old file. The killer, if he is still alive, would be in his mid-60s or older now, an old man, perhaps living quietly, perhaps convinced that time buried his secret. But time doesn't bury DNA. It preserves it. George Murdoch was a kind, gentle man who kept pigeons and loved being out on the water. A man who promised his wife he would never fight a robber because no amount of money was worth his life. He kept that promise, right up until a stranger in the back seat gave him no choice. For 40 years, the man who killed him has hidden inside a crowd of 10,000 homes and 8,000 statements. But he can't hide inside his own blood. And somewhere out there, in a family that may not even know it, the thread that leads to him is waiting to be pulled. If you have any information about the murder of George Murdoch, if you know the man in the Iron Maiden t-shirt, or if you have ever wondered about someone in your own family, Police Scotland want to hear from you. And a simple DNA swab could be the thing that finally ends this. Because no case stays cold forever.